Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Grace Holland. More Wake County schools are turning wasted food into snacks for students. A pilot program aimed at reducing food waste has been tested in 8 elementary schools and will expand to 6 more schools next year. WRAL education reporter Emily Walkenhorst joins me to explain how this works. Emily, thanks for being here.
Of course, glad to be here.
So this is some reporting that you did last week. So tell me a little bit about what this program is and how it works exactly.
Yeah, so it's called the SHARE program. It's run by a nonprofit called Towards Zero Waste. They're based out of Cary, and they basically have like a tray in the school cafeteria. So kids go there for breakfast, they go there for lunch, and they get certain things. And sometimes maybe their eyes are bigger than their stomachs, or maybe they're, using free and reduced price lunch. And so, staff is required to put a certain, number of things on there. You have to take a half cup of fruits or a half cup of vegetables or something for that meal to be federally reimbursable. And to some extent, more meals than just free and reduced price lunch can be reimbursable as well. Some schools, every meal is a part of that program too. So there's always extra food, as you can imagine. Kids can be really picky. There are certain things they don't want. You always hear about kids trading food. But this is kind of a formalized way of doing that. If you don't want your fruit cup, you can put it on this tray as long as it's unopened and some other child might take it. And then, then that tray, if there's anything left from that tray at the end of breakfast or lunch, they take it to like the office, and the office might put some stuff in the fridge, and then they'll put that tray and that fridge out somewhere centrally located where kids can just go back for a snack later in the day if they're hungry.
Okay, and so why was this something that the school board wanted to try in the first place?
So the school board has always been very concerned about food waste, at least for the last few years that I recall covering them. The last couple of springs, they have voted to raise meal prices by a quarter. Basically these meal departments, they're kind of like independent restaurants. They need to raise enough revenue to pay for their costs, their wages, the food, etc. And so they've kind of struggled to make ends meet. They don't have enough, supplies are increasing. They don't. They're just not making enough money for it. And a lot of kids are even just bringing meals from home. They're like, well, we think we can do this cheaper than paying for a meal at a school. And something that comes up in that conversation every time is, are we spending too much money on food kids don't eat? And there are just a lot of rules around that make it a hard problem to address. So as much as the school board has wanted to reduce costs so as to not raise food prices on families, it's kind of difficult to do that because there are regulations around what kids need to be served, even though kids don't necessarily want that food. And so this is basically a program that at least takes that concern and turns it into something that actually benefits kids. It reduces waste and actually feeds kids if your biggest concern is kids going hungry, maybe a lunch not being enough or not having food at home.
Right. And so where is this program being used right now?
So there are 8 elementary schools using it right now. They're not in every town in Wake County, but they're kind of spread out. So you can go all the way to Wake Forest Elementary. They've got something. Lincoln Heights Elementary and Fuquay-Varina has a program. So they're kind of spread out.
Okay. Let's take a quick break right there. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how this program has done so far. Emily, before the break, you were walking us through this food program that makes sure that food doesn't go to waste. So how has the school system and its partners gauged the success of this program? I think it's called the SHARE program, right?
Yes, it's called the SHARE program. One thing they've done is they've had volunteers go in there and count how many things end up on a tray. There are different employees at each school who are kind of like taking charge of it. And some of them even have students, push the carts, and people just kind of get involved, and they're taking count of everything on that tray. and everything that comes off of that tray. They might not be doing that every day, but they're able to see, okay, well, we did some point in time counts. We saw, 41 items got put on the tray at lunch today, and almost all of them were gone by the end of lunch because you can go up during lunch and just grab one. And then, they took them out at dismissal, and the rest of the food was gone by then. So that's some of the numbers that we're getting from some of the schools.
Okay. And what do the schools that have used this program so far say about how it's going?
So we heard from people who work at 3 different schools, and they love it. It is technically, a little extra work for them. You got to buy supplies and stuff like that. And that's kind of where the nonprofit comes in. But people just generally find it rewarding. They really care about doing this work. It's, it's not terribly difficult, but at the same time, you can see kids get a meal. I mean, there are stories around, this child got caught up in a long carpool line. They didn't end up getting into the building in time to get their breakfast, but they were able to go to the office, say they needed a snack, and somebody handed them something because there was something left over from breakfast. So people they love it. They find it rewarding.
Okay. Is this something that's been done in other school districts?
So the federal government, the USDA, they kind of regulate school meals. For quite a while now, they've had regulations that allow for what they call share tables. And so essentially what we're seeing in Wake County right now is just Wake County's version of a program that has been authorized by the federal government for a while. That's not in every school district. We know that some school districts they've heard about what Wake County is doing. They want to know more. That was something the school district said last week. So we know more. We know plenty are already doing it, and more want to do it.
Right. And obviously this is going to be expanding within Wake County schools as well. So what are some of the other schools that are going to be doing this next year, and sort of what age groups do they serve?
So they're adding 10 new schools next year. It's going to be 6 elementary schools and then 4 middle schools. And what they did with a couple of the middle schools was they tried to align them with elementary. So kids who went to Lincoln Heights Elementary can do it at Fuquay-Varina Middle School next year, if that's where they're set to go. So there's an expansion. We'll see how it goes at the middle school level. And, no high schools yet, but I'm sure, the way everybody talks about it, I think, this is just the first expansion.
All right. Well, we will be watching this closely. Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. That's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.